James Perch played 222 games for Nottingham Forest under Joe Kinnear, Colin Calderwood, Gary Megson and Billy Davies. He'll tell you all about it, how his worst game in a Forest shirt was his last game in a Forest shirt, about his move to Newcastle and how he fell out big time with Alan Pardew. All of that on the way with James Perch next. Well, Perchy, great to see you again. I was going to start with your Forest debut, which came at the age of 18 at Wigan. How much do you remember of that day and the build-up to it?
I remember it quite well, actually. It was Joe Kinnear in charge at the time, and we had a few centre-halves out injured. I think Dorse was injured and a couple others, and I was the next one in line kind of thing. And the gaffer took me up to Wigan, stayed in a hotel, but he didn't tell me I was playing. So I was thinking, well, it's good experience for me to go up with the first team and stuff. I might be on the bench. And then the morning of the game, like an hour and a half before the kickoff, he flipped over the chart and my name was there at centre-back. And I was like, couldn't believe it. Like, I've never played in a game like that before. And it was just surreal. And I suppose it was good in a way because I didn't have time to get nervous or think about it too much. So he chucked me in at the deep end, really. And the game itself, I can't really remember it, but we was playing against, all I remember is I was playing against Jason Robertson, Nathan Ellington, who went on then to get, I think, 60 goals between them that season. We managed to keep them down to a 1-1 draw. So I enjoyed it. I loved it. And Des Walker came on for me, which is a nice thing to say because obviously Des Walker's a legend and stuff. And to say I got substituted on my debut late on because I got cramped for Des Walker is something I can tell the grandkids.
So presumably the kind of build-up where you've not done a lot of work, have you, or had you done a lot of work in the week building up to the game? If you're surprised an hour and a half or whatever, 2 hours before the game, you're surprised that you're playing.
See, I can't remember the week before or the lead up to the game. I can't remember if I was training with the first team or was doing shape and I was in and around it. I honestly can't remember how it all came about. I think all I remember is David Johnson saying to me after the game, he said him and the gaffer and that were having a drink down in the bar night before the game or having food. And Joe Kinnear said to him, what should I do at centre half? Because I've got a few injuries. And Jono said, just chuck Perchy in. And that was it.
I mean, you'd not completely come out of nowhere, had you? Because you'd obviously come through the youth ranks, but there was a bit of buzz, a bit of hype about you before that as kind of being the next one off the production line.
Yeah, there was, because obviously we had JJ and Reedy and Dorse and West Carr who came through before me, and I was doing well in the youth team at the time and doing well for the reserve. So, like you said, it was spoken about me maybe making my first team debut at some stage, but it was still a surprise to me making my debut the first game of the season.
How was Joe Kinnear to play for?
For a young lad, I thought he was fine. I don't know what to say. I think the older boys kind of liked him because whatever. I can remember one story. Tank saying after the game, I can't remember who we played at home, and Joe Kinnear said, "Right, boys, we'll see you Monday, Tuesday, off Wednesday." And Tank's gone, no. We'll have Sunday, Monday off. We'll see you Tuesday and we'll be off Wednesday, something like that. And Joe Kinnear just went, yeah, that's fine. So it was kind of a pushover to the older boys. But for me, he was all right, actually. No complaints.
Because you'd played kind of at youth level with Paul Hart, hadn't you? And kind of been involved in, he was, I would imagine, very instrumental in bringing you through.
Yeah, I love Harty. Still keep in touch now with him. He was, like you said, he was pivotal to my career starting. He loved the youth players. And I remember when he got sacked, the day after we was meant to go to Dublin, I think, or on the Monday after we was meant to go to Dublin for like a little training camp. And I had my bags packed to go. This was being my first time away with the first team. But then he got sacked and it got cancelled. So he had high thoughts for me. And I think if Harty was in charge for a long enough period, I'd have played centre half for a long time instead of right back, midfield. I think he'd have just stuck me in at centre half and kept me there.
Because
He
there
loved
was
me at centre half.
quite a difference in character, isn't there, between Paul Hart and Joe Kinnear? They're kind of completely opposite ends of the spectrum, you'd say.
Well, like I said, Joe Kinnear was so relaxed and almost no rules. And then Paul Hart coming through the youth team, we looked up to him, we were scared of him. He was called the big man. Everyone called him the big man. And we were scared of him. And when he was first team manager, the youth team had to go and stand in the corridor after a game. And he used to come out the change room, whether they'd won or lost. And all the boys' heads just used to go down. Like, we didn't want to make eye contact with him. We were so scared of him. But it's not until you get to know him. He's like a headmaster. When you're at school, you're all scared of the headmaster. But then when you get old enough and you leave school, you think, why was I so scared of him? He's probably a nice guy. But same with Harty, he was scary to the young lads, but also a good teacher and a good coach.
And so many players, obviously yourself included, but so many kind of came through under his tutelage, if you like, and that kind of the disciplinary way of doing things kind of it seemed to really help footballers develop, not just as players, but as human beings as well.
Yeah, he was massive on developing like gentlemen at the club. So we used to do school education there. He used to come over and oversee what we was doing. He liked us to do jobs around the ground, cleaning the changing room, the pros' boots, stuff like that. Just making us into a well-rounded adult, if you like. And then obviously the football side of it comes in. And he used to say, if you're good enough, you're old enough, whether you're 16 or 22. If you're good enough and you're training good enough, he'll play you. And that was our philosophy then as an academy. And I think they've kind of lost that now a little bit. And there doesn't seem to be as many kids coming through like there was back in the day.
As a Forest fan as well, what was that like? Did you feel kind of, extra pressure or more excitement, do you think, because you're a Forest fan going to make your debut for the first team at Wigan?
Yeah, it made it extra special, that bit of pressure on me, if you like. And I didn't realise how much pressure there was on me until I left and I went to Newcastle, because when you play for your hometown club and you go out for a meal or you're in town or whatever, people come up to you and want to talk to you, which is fair enough. And as a Forest fan and a Forest player, I felt that pressure that I had to talk to everyone and be nice to everyone and give everyone time, which is fine. I don't mind doing it. But then when I went to Newcastle and I wasn't a Newcastle fan and someone would come up to you, you could almost bat it off a little bit, and you didn't feel that pressure to always be on your best behaviour, if you know what I mean. Or it's hard to explain because, and then when I came back, I still live in Nottingham now, and when I come back to Nottingham now, I don't feel that pressure as I have to please the Forest fans or I have to. Do you know?
I guess it's a very small network, isn't there? That you know, if you're out misbehaving or just being rude to somebody, as simple as that, then it kind of gets back and it spreads around amongst the community.
Yeah, not that I want to be rude or
no,
but you might be rude without meaning to be, and it gets back. And it's like you said, it's a small community and it gets round. So you always felt like you had to be on your best behaviour all the time, 365 days a year, where I know you should be, but the odd time you might not be. It gets round, and that pressure there, I not struggled with, but I found it easier when I went to Newcastle.
And the managers you played with or played under at Forest, as we mentioned, you started with Joe Kinnear, but then there was Gary Megson and Billy Davies, Colin Calderwood as well. I mean, they're all such different people, aren't they? What kind of style do you think suited you? Who did you perhaps get on with the best?
I love Billy, just because he knew how to get the best out of his players. He put the high demands on us, and some of us coped with it, and some of us thrived on it. I loved it, but some lads didn't like it because he was too harsh on them. So I'd say Billy, definitely. I just wish he didn't have this falling out with the board all the time, and he always wanted to fight with everybody above the team. And I think he could have been successful at Forest if he just relaxed a little bit.
Yeah.
If he had a bit of Colin Calderwood in him.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably that intensity and that kind of the them and us type feel that probably gives him the edge, doesn't it, as a manager? So maybe if you took that away, he wouldn't have that. I can't believe I'm defending him, but given what happened, but if you took that away, maybe he wouldn't have the same edge as a manager. Perhaps, I don't know.
Yeah, he loved that siege mentality where it was us in the dressing room, us 25 of us or whatever against the world, and nobody can come into our dressing room and upset us, or nobody can come to our ground and take 3 points off us. Which I love that. I love that mentality. It was great, but I just wish he didn't do that with the board and the outside and the press and all the rest of it. If you could have just toned that down a little bit and got everybody on side, I think we'd have done better than what we did.
Do you think in the end that kind of, does that seep into the dressing room as much as you might not want it to, and obviously as much as he wouldn't want it to? Do you think that kind of inevitably that does seep in and it becomes even if it's just a small issue, it becomes an issue?
Yeah, I think it does seep in, because you're not stupid. We read the papers and you get little snippets of it, and when you hear him falling out with somebody else and then he's falling out with somebody else, it kind of does come into the dressing room a little bit. And he might come in one day and he's fuming because he's fell out with the board, or he's had a meeting with the chairman or whatever, and it comes back down to us. And he was intense, and I just wish he knew how to tone it down a bit.
It got so close, didn't it, with getting to the playoffs? I'm trying to think. You left after the first playoff semi-final, didn't you? You weren't there for the second season, but that first season, the whole, everybody still talks about that game at West Brom, but that whole season felt kind of not inevitable, but that was probably as good as Forest have been in the last 20 years.
Yeah, we had such a good group, and like I said, we were playing well and went into the playoffs in good form. And was the first game against Blackpool, was it 1-1 or 2-1 to them?
2-1 Blackpool, yeah.
Yeah, and I thought we did all right. I thought we played all right that game. And then we came back to our place, and what happened, and we got beaten. It was devastating, but I don't know. I think I've said it in an interview before. I had the feeling after the game that Billy didn't want to get promoted. I don't know. I just had that feeling. I spoke to my agent afterwards. I said, I've got a feeling he didn't want to get promoted. He messed around with the team from the first game to the second game.
Because you played left back, didn't you, in that second game?
I played right back in the first game. I played right back. Gunts played left back, and then for the second game, for some reason, I played left back and Gunts played right back. And I think they did a couple other things that surprised me, and it just didn't sit well with me after the game.
Did you ever speak to him about it? I mean, because that would have been your last game, would it, for Forest? As it turned out,
last game. Yeah, probably my worst game I've ever played.
And how much notice did you get of being left back in that second leg?
I'm trying to think. I can't remember. It might have just been the evening of the game. It might have been. I might be wrong. But yeah, I can't really remember having too much time to think about it. But I just don't know why he did it, and it was frustrating because we'd done so well all season, and then just did mess about with the team so much in the biggest game of Forest last 20 years. Like you said, I don't know why he did it, but yeah, it didn't sit well with me after the game.
Because there was the whole, and there still is occasionally a left back drama, but there was that whole left back drama that second half of the season, wasn't there? Because Nicky Shorey had come in and done really well, and when Forest were at their pomp in that part of the season, he was seemingly part of it. And the moment he went, it not quite fell apart. That's too strong, but it was never quite the same.
Did Nicky Shorey get called back? Is that why?
Yes, I think I seem to remember he got called back. And I think he stayed at Reading, didn't he, for the rest of the season, if memory serves?
Nick Shaw's was brilliant for us. Like I said, he sorted that left back slot out nice. He shored us up. He was very good. And then, like you said, when he went, it kind of did derail us. Was putting me there, putting Gunts there. Probably put Chris Cohen there a couple of times. So it wasn't ideal. So yeah, Nicky Shorey was a big blow for us.
There is more to come from James Perch in a moment, including that fallout with Alan Pardew at Newcastle. I need to thank my gold members of Chippers Club and their continuing support of the channel: Carl Thorne, Tiny Media, Philip Sheldon, Chris Annable, Paul Harrison, Christian Tonnies, Perry, James Sorden, Thomas Newton and Mark German. Thank you for your continued support of the channel. It makes a real difference going forward. In the future, you'll be able to watch videos without YouTube adverts and also plenty of other benefits as well. I'll pop a link in the description below if you're interested in becoming a member of Chippers Club. As I say, it supports the channel, helps me do more and more, but also hopefully you get a whole heap out of it as well. Let's get back to James Perch. That, as you mentioned, was your last game. I was reading in an article, I think in The Athletic, about you might have gone earlier than that because Colin Calderwood, Chris Hughton were at Newcastle at the time. How much interest was there in taking you, I presume, in the January before that kind of playoff campaign?
Yeah, it was in the January. Colin rang me up and said, "We want to bring you to Newcastle." And I was like, "Yeah, fine." I was injured at the time, I think. I had a stress fracture in my leg, so I hadn't played, I don't think, up until January. But Billy Davies was adamant he wasn't going to let me go.
Because they were up there with you at the time, weren't they? Newcastle, West Brom, Forest.
Yeah, it was us three at the top. So he said, "Well, I'm going to sell a player to Newcastle when we need you," kind of thing. So I understand where he was coming from. It is what it is. I wasn't bitter about not going or whatever. So I stayed at Forest and we had a good push. Luckily for me, and well, not luckily, but it happened in the summer that after the Blackpool game. It's just a shame that I went out after the Blackpool game because, like I said, that was probably the worst game I've had in a Forest shirt, and it cost us a trip to Wembley. I was terrible that night. I admit it, but I'm just gutted that was my last game for Forest because I left under a bit of a storm after that.
Could you have done anything different, do you think? Or were you just kind of, in a sense, thrown to the wolves a little bit because you were kind of out of position?
Yeah, I think I was like not hung out to dry, but just like I said, just thrown out there, go and play left back in the biggest game we're gonna play. And not that I'm not feeling bad about it or I feel bitter towards Billy Davies or anything like that. It is what it is. I should have done better. I know I should have. I can play left back. I've played it many a time. I just had a bad game, bad night. Unfortunately, it cost us. Probably cost us the playoff semi-final, and that was unfortunately that was my last game for Forest. It's not how I wanted to leave. Obviously, I would have loved to get promoted in Forest, but that's how it is, I suppose.
You then, as you say, joined Newcastle, who'd gone up to the Premier League. Was there any hesitation as kind of being the boy from Nottinghamshire, being a Forest fan, or was the kind of the Premier League lights too bright?
I think the lights are too bright. I think it was an opportunity I couldn't really turn down. Obviously, I love playing for Forest, but I think when you're an academy graduate, you don't get treated the same as someone who they bring in from another club. And I see it all the time now. I see it with lads in the Premier League or lads like Ryan Yates. I'll give you an example for. He's similar. He was very similar to me. How he's thought of by the fans. They'd rather see a flair player in his position, but they don't actually respect what he does for the team. And Ryan Yates has played under every manager that's come in, similar to what I did. Everyone wanted Lewis McGugan to play or Reddy Maeski to play instead of me or this, that, the other. But every manager that came in played me because they saw my worth for the team. And I see that with Ryan Yates now. He's doing the same thing that I did, getting a bit of stick. They want Carvalho in, and they want this, that, the other player in. But every manager's playing him, so he must be doing something right.
Does that, particularly as a young player coming through, and you're doing your best every week, and you think, what more can I do? You're right. It is the kind of, not necessarily the younger players, but maybe the homegrown players that seem to attract more criticism than than most. Do you know? Is that how do you deal with that?
You just have to kind of block it out, and as long as you're doing well Monday to Friday in training, and then turning up on a game on a Saturday, and the manager likes you and your teammates like you, like what you do, that's all that matters. I know the fans can have an influence on a Saturday; they can boo and jeer and all the rest of it, and write on social media that how you shouldn't be playing. But as long as your teammates respect you and your manager and your coaches respect you, and they want to play you, that's enough for me. But I have noticed it more at Forest than anywhere else I've been.
Right, that's interesting. Newcastle itself seems a very kind of up and down time for you in terms of you're in favour, you're out of favour. The crowd don't like you, the crowd love you. How do you look back on that 3-year spell?
Like you said, it was a very tough start. I came from the Championship to the Premier League, and I was probably, when you hear commentators say you're always a yard off it, I was probably 5 yards off it. With the pace and everything, it just caught me by surprise, and I just didn't deal with it the first season, and then second season, third season did really well. So I look at it as a time where I probably loved the most, but it was only a short space of time. I wish I could have done it longer.
And I was reading you picked up 5 bookings in your first 5 games, which apparently is still a Premier League record. That's never been done before or since.
And it's a record I'm proud of as well. People say it's a disgrace. You got 5 yellow cards in 5 games. I say, yeah, but I'm in the history books, and no one's took it. No one's done it since, and no one did it before me. So,
how did you manage that?
Like I said, I was 5 yards off it, so
You're kicking everybody.
I was just kicking everybody. Yeah, just missed time tackles, and yeah, but I knew myself. I was off it. I didn't feel right going into games, and luckily I turned it around. And I remember talking to Steve Harper, and he said to me, like in my second or third year, he said, "Perch, I've never seen anyone all the time he's been there. He's there 20 years. Turn around the fans like you have." And it was just down to hard work and effort.
That season, probably about 10 years ago now, you finished 5th in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Which is, for Newcastle, given what's happened since, he's all. I mean, I know they've been up there in the past, but that feels extraordinary now.
Yeah, well, I've done a few interviews since, and with the local newspapers up in Newcastle, and I said, I think that achievement went under the radar a little bit. We finished 5th in the Premier League. I think we finished above Liverpool that year. It was a massive achievement. I know when you look, it's not the Premier League it is now, where the top 6 are the top 6 and no one's going to break into it. But it was still a very, very competitive league with very good sides in it, and we managed to get in there. And like I said, I think it went under the radar a little bit. We didn't even really celebrate it as players.
And what was the key to that, do you think? What was it that made you such a good side at that point in the Premier League?
We had a good mix of foreign players. We made some very good signings. We had Cheick Tiote, we had Hart and Ben Arfa, we had Colaccini, we had Demba Ba. All these players that have gone on to do much better things. We had them at Newcastle, and we had a good core of English players. It was me, Ryan Taylor, Dan Gosling, Mike Williamson. We were in the team, and then we had a couple of Argentinian boys. It was brilliant. We just had a good blend of we didn't have too many foreigners where they formed their own cliques and the English boys were left out. We just had a good blend where it was perfect.
How annoyed were you? How upset were you that you left in the end, Newcastle? Because obviously a huge club, and I'd imagine the sort of club that you would have loved to stay a bit longer at.
Yeah, I didn't want to leave. I was gutted when I left, because this last season I was playing games, and it came up to the January and the gaffer said, right, we're going to offer you a new contract. Because I was keeping players, I was keeping Czech out of the team. I was keeping Vernon and Anita out of the team who had just signed for my Ajax. So I was doing really well. And the gaffer said, right, we're going to give you a new contract. And but wait until after the January transfer window. So let me get all my business done and we'll sign it. So I was like, yeah, fine. Not bothered. And then he brings in Musa Sissoko, a couple of other players. And then after the window, he said, oh, we're not going to offer you a contract now. So I was like, oh, right, okay. Carried on playing to the end of the season. And then Wigan came in. I got a phone call saying Wigan want to sign you. And I still had a year left at Newcastle. I could have stayed. But I just didn't like the way Pardew was, how he lied to me. I didn't like Mike Ashley, how he did things. Because there's loads of things that happened in the season that got my back up a little bit about Pardew and Mike Ashley. So I just thought, you know what, instead of staying and getting treated like an idiot for another year, maybe not playing, I'll just leave. And that's what I did. And maybe I should have stayed. Looking back now, should I have stayed and fought for my place? Possibly. But I just didn't get the respect back from the board or the manager. So I thought I'm not going to stay around for it.
What was he like, Pardew? Because he kind of seems to very much divide opinion. You know, some players you speak to who've played under him. We've had Andy Reid on the channel, and he loved Alan Pardew at Charlton, and others seem, shall we say, less than keen. And it sounds like you were perhaps less than keen as well.
I didn't mind him. He was fine, but he did a few things which I didn't like. I had a massive argument with him before I started playing. Actually, when I wasn't in the team, I had a massive argument with him. And then when I left, he did something to Ernest Gutierrez. He went to court against Jonas, and I saw what he wrote about Jonas, which I didn't like. And he just. So I've said I did a piece with the Newcastle press, and I said I'd never speak to him again after what he did to Jonas. And he's just, I don't know. He was all right as a man, but not 100% for me.
What's next for you? Because obviously you're injured at the moment. You're at Mansfield, but injured. How long before you get back, do you think?
It's a tough one, really, because I don't know 100% if I'm going to come back.
Oh, right, really?
Yeah, I think the injury is that bad. It can, if I do come back, there's going to be a high risk of me. Well, there's going to be a risk of me potentially doing some real damage. So I've got to weigh it up, whether it's worth it or whether it's not, or whether I come back to play or not. And at the minute, I'm probably more not going to play again than I am going to play.
Do you have a kind of a date in mind when you have to make that decision, or how does it play out in your mind?
Yeah, I sat down with the physio, and he said, look, there's no rush on deciding what you do next. I've got my contract's till the end of the season. I've got a meeting with a specialist on the 21st of this month to see how things are going. I've had a few more scans since. So he'll tell me more on the risk side of it. And then it's up to me then whether I take that risk or whether I don't. But I won't have to make that decision probably till the end of the season.
Well, it's a really sad note to end on, but as always, good to chat to you, good to catch up, and thank you for all those memories down the years at Forest and elsewhere. I really appreciate it.
No, it was good to see you again, mate.